Hey guys, still here. In this experimental video I am looking at some beautiful Star Trek designs for Avorion. When you look at ships like these, they just make my ships pale. So in no particular order, let's have a look at 5 Star Trek starships from the Avorion workshop. Starting with this beauty right here. This is probably very well recognizable as the Sovereign class ship. Some call it a battle cruiser, some call it a battleship. It is of course entirely what you want it to be in Avorion. You can use it as a small ship, as a big ship, whatever you like. Now, spec-wise, she is not a cheap ship to build. I have downloaded it from the workshop, and the ship takes, interestingly, trinium. It's not even Xanian, it's trinium and iron. A lot of iron, and of course a bunch of credits. Now it could be a lot worse. There are a lot of ships on the workshop which are a lot more expensive. The ship is not exactly built to dimensions, but then again, I wouldn't really, well, I don't hold it against them. Because building something as beautiful as this must have taken hours and hours of painstaking work. You can even see all the crew compartments. They're drawn up out of very, very small sections. Sometimes even as small as, well, this. Really, really small. 0.5 by 0.25 by 0.25. Very, very small blocks. The color scheme just works. This is what I remember as the Enterprise E / the Sovereign class. And sure enough, if you speed up, you're going to see that the thrusters over here, they work. Of sorts. Normally, I believe the big E used to have impulse engines here and here, and maybe some more impulse engines on the sterns of the nacelles, but I'm not too sure about those. The ship, spec-wise, has 58,000 points of hull and a 101,000, well, not horsepower, but hit points of shielding. Firepower is, well, what I've currently set up as a bunch of lasers at 1.6k Omicron, but of course, I just went with a bunch of lasers to emulate the phaser arrays that the ship can have. Of course, you can also add a torpedo launcher, which I believe the ship currently does not have. You could add this and make sure that, true to, let's say, First Contact and Insurrection, the ship actually has the quantum torpedo launchers, for which you would have to build specific torpedo tubes. Now over here you can see the lines which are normally, I believe, the phaser arrays on the ventral section of the hull. The ship also comes with a small set of hangar bays. But when I say small, I mean small. You only have a room for 10.8, well, let's say 10.8 points of hangar space. It is not a ship that you use significantly to transport a lot of fighters. It's not what it's supposed to do. It requires 60.27 gigawatts of energy to operate. It generates 114 gigawatts, so you still have a lot of room. And the ship itself comes with quite a few slots for system upgrades. I have currently slotted just the one turret control system to emulate that I can mount the systems. But of course you can add a lot more stuff to it. As I mentioned, dimensions are not entirely up to snuff. I believe the actual Sovereign, according to Star Trek lore, is about 750 meters long. But then again, if you can build something this beautiful, I won't hold it against you. Of course, you can try to shrink the ship down to a specific size where it might be more to your liking. But it has a ton of blocks, this ship. So don't expect the editor to be really smooth on this particular, let's say, shrinking operation. So that is the Sovereign class. Link down below in the description. Another design that you might recognize is the AKIRA class. The AKIRA class is, I believe in Star Trek lore, a cruiser. And it has, or at least the creator has gone for a slightly different design, at least with the nacelles. I think not the provinces. The Enterprise had the glowing nacelles, so the glow blocks over here, whereas this creator has just gone with a flat coloring. The ship is relative to the Enterprise. It is, or to a Sovereign class, it is significantly bigger. And if I look at specs, you can see that this ship is 1940 meters long. It is really big. It is very, very well shielded at 1.31 million shield hit points. Of course, I don't have all the required crew on board at the moment. It's not really that important. This is just a showcase. And I will let you decide how you want to build this ship out, how you want to configure it. This ship has a 1.1 terawatt requirement of energy, and it definitely generates a lot more than that, as it can generate 1.61 terawatts. It can store 3.42 terajoules of energy. So requiring, or let's say recharging your batteries really shouldn't be that much of a problem. It has no fewer than 14 upgrade slots. So you can add a lot of stuff to this. Now don't mind the name, because I just applied the new design over the previous one. So this should say AKIRA class, but it still says Enterprise E. You can customize this as you see fit. The ship also comes with a hangar. And I believe... No, it doesn't quite go out the whole way. But I believe true to the AKIRA class, it has a couple of docking bays which are pretty much part of one of the decks. At least that's what the lore says. The AKIRA class was built as a torpedo cruiser / carrier. And this definitely signifies it, because it has 1006.9 points for fighters. Depending on, of course, what type you want. Is she quick? Yes, she is. 1316 meters per second. This is a quick ship. Now, if I add the crew to it, then I'll be able to show you. But for that, I'd have to jump to a different sector. 1300 is pretty damn quick for a ship, and that's of course without system upgrades. So this is the AKIRA class. Credits and link down below in the description. Another Star Trek favorite that's hard to miss. The Intrepid class, USS Voyager. This ship is significantly smaller than the ones that I've just shown you, both the AKIRA and the Sovereign class, but it has no less of a detail to design. What you can see with the Intrepid class is that it too is officially too big at 1057 meters. The Intrepid, I believe, was quite a bit smaller than that. But let's not get hung up on that and look at what sort of design work has gone into this ship. Over here you can actually see that the ship has the USS Voyager NCC 74656 registration. And these numbers were done without the use of the labels, the ship name that you can now add. So this stuff has been done sheerly by building the name one block at a time. That takes a lot of dedication, that takes a lot of work. So a big hat tip to the creator of this ship. This must have taken a lot of time. The ship has a maximum velocity of 896 meters per second, of course before any upgrades. Yaw, pitch and roll are actually quite bad on the Intrepid, unfortunately. I don't quite like that, because I do like my ships to be pretty snappy, and this unfortunately doesn't quite line up. You might need to do some surgery on the ship in order to correct that. Now, what I really love about this design is the way that the engine nacelles have been done. If you look at the engine nacelles themselves, it is one big glow block, one trinium glow block, and in front of that, the creator has put blank hull slots. So these are sort of, well, I suppose you could consider them prison bars over the nacelles. That's the sort of design that the guy went with. Power generation, well, you have enough. 24 required out of 112 actually generated. So the ship can definitely add a couple of shield boosters. And with that, you can boost your fairly low amount of shields of only 82,000. It's more of an early explorer design. The ship also comes with a small hangar bay. Only has room for, where is it? 2 hangars, or 2 points. So if this were my ship, I would probably go with a repair fighter or something like that. It's not really something that you want to be putting any aggressive fighters in, because I don't think that the ship has a lot of, let's say, resupply power in that sense. Just use it as something that can repair the ship. One design detail that I really like on this ship is the deflector array. The deflector array, I think, has also been built up edge by edge by edge. It's block by block by block. I personally don't have the patience to do this, but I'm very glad that some people do, because it really deserves to be shown off, this design. So that is the Intrepid class. Next up, another pretty familiar sight, especially if you've seen Star Trek movies, Star Trek series. These things are always around. The Excelsior class. It's a cruiser. At least most of the time it's classed as a cruiser. These things have been around in Star Trek since, well, since the days of Kirk, I think. As you see them there, but you still see them in the age of Picard, and even in DS9, which of course is more or less the same era. You can still see the Excelsior class ships flying around. Again, with a really neatly designed saucer section. This has probably taken quite a bit of work, building the saucer out as sleekly as this. What I also like about the ship are these various design layers that you see here. Of course, the bridge, as they have it on Star Trek, sits right at the top of the ship, and then it sort of layers out to lower decks. The deflector array gives off a ton of light. Again, a pretty big light block over there. And then this ship even has the, what I believe Star Trek calls the Bassard collectors, up at the front of the nacelles. As for the design of the nacelles themselves, again, a big shout out here. These are, oh, they're done by the use of holograms. Interesting. That's another way to go about it. Ship is pretty well shielded, more or less in the same area of armament / shielding that the Intrepid has at 132,000. This thing is actually very maneuverable. It rolls very, very well at almost 2 rad per second. Pitch is quite good. Yaw could use a bit of work, but well, it's pretty much on every ship. It has a bit of hangar space at 27.3. And with 47 gigawatts out of 81 gigawatts used, you still have a lot of upgrades that you can apply and make this ship even more powerful. You do have a fair amount of upgrade slots. Again, because I keep applying the new design over the other ones, I still have my single turret control system installed. But of course, you can install all sorts of different ships, or sort of different upgrades, and then different weapon systems. Now, as for the ship itself, it is fairly expensive at 2.1 million. It requires 200,000 trinium. I've actually forgot about the other ships. The AKIRA is by far the most expensive ship at 27.9 million. It requires almost almost a million in trinium. 1.4 million in Xanian and 634,000 in iron. So it is a really expensive ship to build. The Intrepid, the USS Voyager, not as bad. Just requires a bunch of trinium and a bunch of credits. Alright, on to the last ship. The last ship, it could not be missing from this lineup, is the USS Defiant, or this creator's envisionment of the Defiant. Notable details on this design are the Starfleet emblem over here with the whole lines that I believe the Defiant also has. You got the glowing warp engines over on the back. We do not have a shuttle bay on this one, so you're going to have to go without a hangar slot on this ship. But overall, it just really gives off that Defiant feel. As for armament on this ship, I personally would go with something like chain guns, I think, to signify the use of the pulse phaser that the ship of this type had. It also has, I believe, 1 or 2 standard phaser strips, which could be used in the sense of standard lasers. And in order to fit all that, well, you have quite a bit of room. The ship comes with 6 upgrade slots. So let's say you go with 1 or 2 turret slots and you have enough to get any sort of turret that you want. The ship is pretty agile, 0.31, 0.33 and 0.44. Speed, not that good, 588 meters per second. So keep this in mind as you're, well, you might have to run away at times. Defiant has 95,800 shields and 27,000 hull. It's drawn up entirely out of, or well, not entirely, but mostly out of trinium. But it is trinium armor, so it's not going to break as easily. I really love the design of this ship. I think the warp engines are, again, exceptionally well done. We've got these glowing bits on the top. These things that I never really figured out what they were supposed to be on the Defiant. So maybe if somebody does know, let me know. Overall, no hangar bay as mentioned. So all of your firepower is going to have to come from the ship itself. It does have a built-in system that gives you more radar range and also more hyperspace reach. Hyperspace cooldown 64 seconds, so you're going to be scouting out a sector and then jumping away pretty quick. Overall, I really love the design. Really, really nice ship. And I think it might actually be pretty true to form with a 406 meters. Although, no, actually I'm wrong about that. The Defiant was a lot smaller than that. I think the Defiant was somewhere in the range of 100 meters, but I'm sure you guys in the comment section will correct me on that. If you want to build this ship, you're going to need a, well, not even that big of a supply of resources. 1.2 million, let's say 1.3 million credits, about 12,000 iron, you got 8,500 trinium and 93,000 xanium. So that tells you that the ship looks to have a lot of trinium, but that is just the surface. Because once you start to take these blocks away, you're going to find that, and this is currently going to have to get rebuilt, there is a xanium generator and a xanium shield generator underneath these blocks. So there is more to this ship than actually meets the eye. Anyway, that's the Defiant. And that also concludes the lineup of these 5 Star Trek ships. I really love the designs of these things. It must have taken a lot of time for these things to get built, and I wanted to highlight them because I think that on the Steam Workshop they're not really getting enough credit. I'm not taking any credit for these things at all. It's all the design work that the original creators of the ships have put into it. So all the credit goes to them. They have built some really, really beautiful ships, and a big hat tip to them. Let me know what you think of this video. If you have any more suggestions for ship showcases, then by all means. If you absolutely hate the video, let me know as well. Hit the dislike button, and I will refrain from doing any further of these vids. But I think that there are so many really, really good designs on the Steam Workshop that, well, we can all learn a lot from these guys and their ship design. Considering that I'm most of the time building bricks, or at least lately slightly relatively more sleek bricks, this is so many levels beyond me. So really, really well done to these guys. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I shall catch you guys soon for more Avorion content.